what happened or happening in the Western nations, including Australia, in theory?
Well, it's more than dangerous. It's a plan to destroy Japan and society. I think it looks to me like a recipe for destroying the good things that you have now in Japanese society.
ワールドストラテジー世界の読み方、山岡鉄秀です。But how the incumbent parties, Labour and Liberals, are responding to it? That's obviously the popularity of the Pauline Hanson, the One Nation, is the reflection of people's thought, right? Hope. So those big existing parties must consider it, must take it into account, right? How are they responding?
Well, when you said the increase in popularity for One Nation is a result of people's thoughts or hope, you left out one word: desperation.
Okay.
Desperation. People in Australia, the average person now is becoming desperate with the crime, the enormous increase in government debt, and the feeling that the incumbent parties simply ignore them. They ignore us. So how are these incumbent parties, Labor Party or the Liberal National Coalition, the opposition, how are they responding? They are completely confused. They don't know how to respond. They've developed a culture where they know what public opinion is and what the public wants, and their first reaction is to ignore it. It doesn't matter. We are the incumbents. We will always win. We don't care about what you think. It sounds surprising in a democracy, but that's how they behave.
In Britain or Germany and France, those newly emerging parties are under the huge pressure, right? And what about One Nation? The situation in Australia, are they facing the same sort of stuff or maybe a bit less?
Well, at the moment, the One Nation Party does not have many members of parliament. It's got, I think, 4 or 5 in the federal parliament, and in the state parliaments it has very few. But the sudden rise in popularity is really only 6 months, 9 months old. I mean, 1 year ago today, One Nation was not that popular. Now it's number 1. So this crisis has happened really in the last 6 to 9 months. So the next elections, you have a general election here in Victoria in November, but the next federal election would be around about March of 2028. So there's still some time left. So right now, the incumbent parties are ignoring or slightly attacking One Nation, but they're not changing their policies to deal with what people want. Which
really?
No, not yet. They persist with crazy net zero, and whenever you mention mass migration, they say, well, that's racist, and they use the hate speech laws to try and stop that, like in Britain.
But isn't Albanese, the Prime Minister, sort of, setting the limitation, stricter limitation on the intake of migrants or refugees?
Well, sometimes you hear him say that, but in fact, they're not doing it. They're not doing it. So these days, political life in the Western countries is almost 90% misinformation. They say something that's not true, and they say it again and again and again, and they use the social media paid by the taxpayers to amplify it, and they hope that that will keep everybody kind of happy for a little while, but behind the scenes, nothing changes, nothing.
What's wrong with the Western developed nations? Well, some time ago, they are supposed to be the most civilized, right? And the leading civilization type of, impression. But then now, the deteriorating so quickly and almost committing suicidal. It's almost suicidal. The destroying own systems. That is the very base of democracy.
Yeah. Yes, it's true. And you saw this exactly the same thing in the United States with the Biden administration, and it really began with Obama, where replacement theory became really the guiding policy for the left-wing party, the Democrats. So they began it then, and during the Biden years, it was very obvious. So the first election of Trump was a reaction against the Obama extremism. And the second time he took office was an even greater reaction. So in the United Kingdom, you had a very big win by the Labour Party last year in the general election, a huge majority, because people had become very angry with the Conservative Party. The government were there, and it was a very volatile swing. The sort of hen dorsey was very large. So now, I think in Australia's case, there will be a big reaction at the general election against Albanese. People are not stupid. Everybody knows Victoria is a mafia state. Everybody knows that what the government in Canberra says is false. It's quite extraordinary. Everyone knows it's false, and they keep repeating it every day. So, the only thing we have is our vote. So if the replacement theory works and the Victorian government survives the general election in Victoria, then it's over. We have to go to New Zealand. Seriously, I mean, it's over. Victoria, Melbourne will become like Detroit or Baltimore. The crime will get worse. So that's why people are becoming desperate. And I think that the government will change in Victoria later this year. And I think the government in Australia will change in 2028.
I really hope so. The replacement theory you mentioned, it sounds like sort of global movement, the global implication and implementation, sort of beyond sovereign nations. Yeah. Do you think it is driven that way, the globally driven the scheme, which the locally, the people, we the people locally have to respond and refute against. Is that what's happening in front of us right now, do you think?
Yes, I think when you look at the left of centre parties across the democracies in the world, every left of centre party has a conservative faction and a radical faction. And the radical factions are influenced by Marxist doctrine. It's quite clear. Their purpose is to destroy. Now, gradually, these radical factions in the Democrats, in the British Labour Party, and in the Australian Labour Party, they took control of their parties because the conservative factions in those parties got very lazy. And once the radical faction takes control of the party, then in comes the destructive policies like replacement theory. So I have some friends in the Australian Labor Party, in the Conservative faction. They don't like what's going on. They're very, very worried. But they lost control. And the same, you compare the Clinton era to the Obama era, that's the takeover. The radicals take over.
I see. I'm not sure how much you are aware of what's happening here in Japan. The Japanese government is presently planning to intake unskilled labor, a large number of unskilled labor force from, well, sort of, what can I say, the third world. Yeah. And then look after them to make sure they gain skills while they're in Japan, and then eventually give them the right to stay in Japan longer or potentially forever. So isn't this a very dangerous policy which is simply repeating what happened or happening in the Western nations, including Australia, in theory?
Well, it's more than dangerous. It's a plan to destroy Japan and society. I mean, if you can make some conditions, for example, you would insist that these low-skilled people come from Buddhist countries, certainly not Muslim countries. But eventually, the quality of what you import will determine the quality of your society. And it sounds like a really stupid scheme dreamt up in Kasumigaseki by bureaucrats who have no idea of history and no idea of the reality of the world. It looks to me like a recipe for destroying the good things that you have now in Japanese society.
I agree. Okay. Okay, let's shift our topic to a broader security of the region. The AUKUS, which is the sort of Anglo or the military treaty, defense treaty amongst United States, the UK, and Australia. And Australia was supposed to receive the nuclear-powered submarines from the United States. But recently, it's reported that US had no choice but to downgrade the AUKUS scheme so that they can no longer provide Australia with the latest model of the nuclear-powered submarine. Is that right?
Yes, and one of the reasons is that the United States doesn't have the financial power anymore. They spend so much money on domestic welfare and very expensive public health that they simply can't afford to produce new submarines in the numbers that they need or extra ones. So the original idea was Australia would buy Shinsha. Now we're getting a Chukosha. So it's just reality, industrial and financial reality. So we have to live with that.
Well, if you, we do remember how things started years ago. The Australian government considered to buy the normal diesel-powered submarines from Japan, the Soryu model. But it somehow didn't work out. And then, was it Howard government decided to buy from France?
No, it was a government run by a prime minister called Malcolm Turnbull.
Malcolm Turnbull. Okay, that's right. Okay, so decided to buy from France. But it didn't work out either, because it never got materialized. The prices went higher and higher, continued to increase, and then the France couldn't deliver. Yeah. So then finally, was that after the Turnbull administration? I think Scott Morrison. Yeah.
Yes.
And he decided to just cancel the deal, the contract with France, and then went for AUKUS.
Yes.
Expecting to obtain the latest model, or both the second hand and also the latest model from United States. And then after that, work closer with the United Kingdom to even go further. But then it's after this, the all long, difficult time, we ended up this way. It's really tragic to me. Do you think, what is the magnitude of this incident, downgraded AUKUS to this region? Not only to Australia, but also this Western Pacific and Eastern Asia, including Japan and Taiwan, and maybe Philippines and other countries. How do you assess the present situation?
Well, I'm not a military expert, but I pay close attention to it, the situation. And I note that last week, China launched a very large missile from a submarine in the Pacific as a warning. So there's no doubt that the submarine as a platform is very important in national security. But on the other hand, in the last 1 or 2 years, the nature of warfare has changed so much. What we're seeing in the Ukraine-Russia war and the war between Israel and Iran, with America in there, the use of very advanced new technologies in fighting, kinetic warfare, is advancing as quickly as AI is in the workplace, in the office. And therefore, whilst submarines, these very large pieces of hardware, are necessary, it seems to me that actually winning battles, so winning a battle to protect Taiwan and the Okinawa prefecture, this is going to be decided by a combination of semiconductors and new AI technologies, not so much large pieces of hardware. So I think the nature of these decisions is now almost too much for any cabinet in Australia. They simply can't see the future clearly enough to make good decisions.
Well, I agree with you. But in my opinion, the SLBM type of thing, it's more about deterrence. ご視聴ありがとうございました。いいねボタン、配布ボタン、そしてチャンネル登録をよろしくお願いいたします。また皆さんのご意見をコメント欄でお待ちしております。ワールドストラテジー世界の読み方、山岡鉄秀でした。